Hi guys, welcome to Bite Size Excel. In this video, we're going to come to our View tab and we're going to take a look at a few of the options under this window group, which allow us to work a little bit easier within our worksheet. So we're first going to look at this Freeze Panes option. Now essentially what Freeze Panes does, it locks either some rows at the top of your workbook or some columns at the left of your workbook so that these stay in place while you can scroll the rest of your worksheet. Now, one of the first options we're going to look at is Freeze Top Row. And what this does is it locks the top row in place. So as we scroll down, we'll notice that stays in place while everything else moves. Our next option is to freeze the first column. So it does the exact same thing, except now that first column stays in place while everything else can move. And if we want to undo any of these, we can click on Unfreeze Panes. Now, there might be some instances where you want to lock a number of rows at the top of your workbook or a number of columns at the left. So say, for example, we want to lock the first two columns, the top three rows. What we do is we come to this cell and we select this Freeze Panes option. And what that does, it locks everything above that cell and to the left of that cell. So now if we scroll, you'll notice that everything above and to the left of this little grey line is now locked in place. If we unfreeze that, a quick word of caution. If you have scrolled over and can't see your first columns, and say you were to lock this top row and you wanted to do the first four columns, but we can't see them at the moment, if we were to freeze them and you were to try and scroll back, essentially it's locked the view that was in frame when you clicked on Freeze Panes. To fix it, click Unfreeze Panes, scroll back, and then freeze them again. And now you'll see that you can see all four columns and that they are locked in place. The next option is this Split option, which essentially divides your window into different panes that can all scroll separately. So when we go in, you'll see that you have this little grey line here. It's actually not particularly easy to see because of the way I've got this workbook. So we'll just go and make that white, just to make it a little bit easier to see. And you can see this little grey cross here. We can move it around. And essentially it allows you to scroll independently in each of the little panes. You can do it so there's just two rather than four by just grabbing this little bar and dragging it to the edge. And then you see you can scroll the top and the bottom panes independently, depending on which one you've got selected. Now, while this is useful if you're working in different parts of the same tab, I do find it can sometimes get a little bit confusing. And sometimes the easier option is to use this new window button. Now, what the new window button does when we click on it is it creates a new window view. So if we hover over our little Excel at the bottom, you'll see there's now two instances of your workbook. One's got a little 1 in place and the other one's got a little 2 ahead of it. Essentially they're the same workbook, but you've now got two windows showing it. And if we combine this with the Arrange All, there's a number of different options as to how you might be able to arrange it. I find the vertical most useful. So if we click OK, you'll have one instance of your workbook on the left and one on the right. Now, if we were just to scroll over, if you were to input something in this cell, you'll see that it appears in both because essentially it's the same workbook, just a different view. Now, this can be particularly useful when you're working between tabs. So if I wanted to, for example, add up that final column in the first tab, but do it in this second tab, you can type in your formula, come across to this, select the data that you want, hit enter, and it's added it up over here. It can also be very useful when you're quality checking your spreadsheet. So if we delete that out, at the point to note, as well as using this Arrange All button, you can also use a shortcut, which is to hold down the Windows button and then use your arrow keys to arrange your workbooks in the way that you want. So if you were to hold down Window key and press arrow left, the workbook that you are active in will go to the left of your screen and then give you an option of what window you want to select to view on the right. And this doesn't have to be just a workbook, it could be a web page or any other window that you have open. So if we just maximize one of these workbooks for now, there is a hide option here. Now that will hide the current window. until you go into a workbook and hit unhide, in which case it will give you the options of your hidden work windows to unhide. I've got to be honest, I've never actually used this option, but you might find it useful. The switch windows option gives you the workbooks that you have open, so you can quickly flick between them. Now, all mine are actually the same workbook, but if you have multiple workbooks open, they'll all be listed here and you can quickly flick between them. And this view side by side button just arranges your workbooks horizontally so you can view them side by side and scroll through them at the same time. Again, it's an option I don't use very often, but you might find it useful. In general, the things that are most useful when you're working in your workbook you'll find is the freeze panes and the new window option. So this has just been a very brief introduction to this window group in your View tab. If you've got any particular questions, please do leave me a comment and let me know. I hope that you found this short video useful, and I do look forward to seeing you on a future video.